If you knew that one belief eliminated from your brain could change the course of your reality, would you want that? It's not for everyone, only the brave. Those who want to own their life like the powerful leaders they were born to be. A pivotal moment can change everything. Now, here's the host of Crossroads to Awakening show, Wendy Paquette.
Hello, and welcome everybody. It is April. Can you imagine that? April. We are stepping into spring, and I hate to be too, tied into what the time is when you're doing an episode, because you want it to be timeless of sorts. And it is so gorgeous that spring is here that you can't not be happy. So what a great day to step into an episode called The Many Faces of Your Reality. So welcome to the Crossroads to Awakening show. I'm your host, Wendy Paquette. I'm a holographic mind reprogrammer. So I help humans that are stuck at a crossroads awaken to their true selves and change the world from where they stand. Because I believe as a high frequency human, how you see your life is a direct reflection of the programs that are etched into your brain. And those programs can easily be eliminated or shifted, changed, or added to when you see your truth for what it is. So if you want to access your true self, or at least have someone hold up the mirror for you, you get to find me at Crossroads to Awakening show on Facebook. So the @ symbol, Crossroads to Awakening show, and message me, reach out to me. Let's get your party started, because the way to transformation is to acknowledge that you get to step into that realm. And it's not going to be easy, but I'll tell you something. It gets so fun, right? When you allow yourself to surrender to what's possible. So let's step into today's episode, The Many Faces of Your Reality. Boy, this is a super fun topic, because the many faces of your reality are unique to you. So no matter what's going on in your world, you're having an experience that is providing you with feedback. And that feedback, I always lean into the emotional aspect of what feedback is. Your emotional response to your reality has so much information in it where you can change anything you want to change, or leave things the way they are if you're completely satisfied and happy with it all. So let's talk about what is working in your reality first. Usually we're looking at the things that don't work, but I wonder if you could be curious about what's actually working in your reality. Are you happy? Are you joyful much of the time? Are you having experiences that you've always wanted? Or are you creating from that space of possibility? So those are really, truly pertinent questions to how you can see your reality right now. Because if you can find something that's actually working, I'm wondering if what you're all working. I mean, let's face it, as humans, and especially if you're anything like me, you're a high performing human, you're looking at your life always wanting to improve something, always wanting to make something better, get better at something, create something that's more fluid, that's flowy, that works. And when we're like that, we tend to look at only what's not working. So when we're always looking at what's not working, what do you think we're missing? Yeah, you guessed it. We're missing what is working. So let's take a moment right now to look into. Let's look at, okay, we're going to look at some categories. Let's make it easy, because I know if you're anything like me, it's not easy to look at what's working. You'll ignore what's working and celebrate yourself every single day if you were given permission. So you're not going to have permission to ignore yourself today. Today, you get to look at what's actually happening and what's truly working. Talk about what's not and how we can change it, because that's where we tend to go, right? Ignore what's working. Let's look there. So let's look in the category of our health. Okay, so health is a good one. What is something that's on your mind every day that you think, you know what, I feel really good today? Or I woke up in the morning, right? And oh my goodness, I sneeze first thing in the morning, or I feel stuffy or blow my nose, or whatever that looks like. Tell me, did you wake up this morning and feel great? Right? Or feel good, at least. Do you acknowledge yourself for feeling good? What are you acknowledging yourself for when you wake up in the morning? Because that will set the tone for your day. So when it comes to your health, that's one of the first things I think about when I wake up in the morning. How good do I feel? How great do I feel? And because I am feeling something, I acknowledge that moment, that space and time, and then implement what isn't available to me in that moment. So if I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel, I'm like, okay, so let's stand up and stretch, take a nice deep breath. What's the first thing that pops into my head? Right? If you're looking at, oh, my body hurts or I've got aches and pains, you can always look at the big picture and say, okay, well, maybe aches and pains because I spent the entire day outside raking leaves. Okay, that works. So what can I do to support my body in order to feel better later? Because it's not a chronic thing. It's just one of those things where maybe I'm acknowledging not being fit enough. So, right, where can I go from there? You know what? I feel really good about my health because I leaves for 2 days in a row. And yes, today I feel a little sore, but I feel great because of all the extra oxygen I got, because of how much time I spent outside, the fact that I got to be in the sunshine. And I really did allow my body to absorb a lot of those beautiful sunny rays. So that's an aspect of your health, this part of it, that's physical, but at the same time, it's also mental. Like, what are you actually saying to yourself in that moment? Are you being hard on yourself for doing something you shouldn't have done? Or are you acknowledging yourself for something amazing that you did do? And maybe you get to do it more often because it created some really good things. You might be sore, but sometimes, and if you ask anyone who works out regularly, not sometimes, most of the time, you're going to be sore because you are working those muscles into a space of health and wellness and potentially some muscles that haven't worked before. So that's just, do I have energy? Am I going to drink a big cup of water this morning with some lemon in it? So I have some alkaline going on. What am I going to do next? Like, I really look into that first thing in the morning. That's just one aspect. So can you acknowledge yourself for how good you feel? Can you acknowledge yourself for waking up and being supportive of your body or of your health first thing? That's really supportive. That's like a virtual high five right now. Yes, you're thinking about your wellness, your health. So another aspect could be to look at if you're an entrepreneur, which a lot of us are, and even if you're not, are you joyful? Are you getting somewhere in your work or your business? Are you supportive or are you being supported? Are you setting goals for yourself and achieving them? Right. And if you are, you get to high five yourself for that. Like, yes, you know what? I created a new program. It's so amazing. I can't wait for these beautiful humans to go through it and experience an enlightened moment. So for me, it would be the modern day time travel, which is your gateway into, if you're a beginner meditator, to finding ways to see that you probably have already been meditating, just didn't really know it. Or you can move on through to an advanced or an expert level where you're really shifting things like timelines, or you're going deep so that you can be in a deep state theta meditative state where you can change things, you can change your reality. So that's super exciting. So, and if you're interested in any, wendypaquette.com and just message me. I'll give you all the deets if there's not a page working, right? Maybe you got up and had that glass of water and you acknowledged yourself for actually getting out of bed without hitting the snooze button. I mean, that's one thing that I know a lot of people and over. The first thing you're creating in the morning is something that you are annoyed by, something that you're saying no to. Instead of saying, yes, it's time to get up in the morning, right? Some people have that, what is that alarm clock with the sun? It comes up with the sun. So it really like wakes your body up with the natural sunlight, whatever the systems your body goes. Don't even like wake up with an alarm. We just wake up whenever our body wakes us up. That's an acknowledgement in itself. So how could you be present to what that looks like and be present to really giving yourself that pat on the back, like, yeah, you know what? Those are just health and wellness things, right? Or even in your business, some new things you created, or I mean, you go deep in the rabbit hole of this or where you're headed, and you get to acknowledge if you're creating what you really want to create, right? Or are you finding rabbit holes that you're going down that aren't supporting you? I mean, rabbit holes often don't because they never end, which is why they call them that. And are you really leaning into, like, this is what I want to create this month or this quarter or this year? So the acknowledging in your world. Also, what about your relationships? Have you called some friends? Have you connected? Have you, spent time with people in your life to let them know that you love them because you're showing up to acknowledge them or see them or spend time with them, whether it's your family members or your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues. So there's many ways to acknowledge the great things that you create in your reality. But these are the many faces of your reality. And that's literally what's working. If you knew that what's working could be amplified by the mere acknowledging what's working and leaning into that, then you will really find yourself freeing up some of the negative aspects of what shows up for you. Because it doesn't always have to be that way. It can really, really get a straight and narrow, right? And leaning into the positivity because you said so, because you've decided that that's how it's going to look and that's what you like to focus on, and then focus on it. So now that we're looking at what's working, I mean, that gets to be the first thing you do in your day. The many faces of your reality are only what you give it. So when you face what's working, when you acknowledge what's working, what happens is you're opening up that frequency that's higher in nature because it's what's working. You begin to become grateful and stand in gratitude for what's working. Then you get joyful because you're like, yeah, you know what? This is actually working. I did create opportunities for myself. I did spend time with my family. And that also creates a higher frequency, a higher vibration in living. So that face of reality is super supportive. So letting yourself be in the space of gratitude, right? Gratitude can only come from something that's working, because we're not grateful for things that aren't working unless it created a breakthrough, in which case, of course, you could be. But most often, it's not something you can look back and go, oh, I'm so grateful I stubbed my toe. Right? And I can't wear my runners. Like, that doesn't really happen. So what you get to do is create a space where you're consistently acknowledging the things that are working, so that moving into your day, you're already swimming in and bringing in the higher frequencies of gratitude and of acknowledgement. It is a very, very small space to live in when all you acknowledge or all you see are things that aren't working. It becomes smaller and smaller every day, because then everything you look at has a problem, right? Everything you look at in the world then becomes the thing that has the problem, and you are committed to solving it, which could be exhausting, even if that's your zone of genius, right? What about all the great things that are occurring in the world, in your reality? So now that we've looked at what's working, you get to keep going with that while we're headed into a break, in order to write down all those things, because when it's working, it can get better, right? When it's working, it can expand. When it's working, you can share it out into the world. And you might not even know that you don't even go there, right? So what if what's working is the thing that's holding you back? Like, just merely acknowledging what's working is the thing that's holding you back from having more of that in your reality, and you didn't even know it, right? So we're going to activate your amplification, your magnification, your multiplication of what's working into the world by acknowledging it and pulling it forward and swimming and pooling in that possibility. So over this break, you're listening to the Crossroads to Awakening show. I want you to start jotting down things, or at least thinking about things that are actually working, right? Not things that are not working. We're only going to, through this break, look at things that are working, and we're going to acknowledge them. We're going to write them down. We're going to celebrate them so we can come through the rest of this day on a really, really high note, because we've said so, because we're acknowledging all these beautiful things. So let's walk into a break there, Jen, and we will be right back. It's Crossroads to Awakening show.
If you could wave a magic wand and have your life be anything you wanted it to be, what would it look like? Professional dancer, CEO of a multi-million-dollar earth-conscious company, a screenwriter with top billing shows, and ultimately have the boldness to move about the world without emotional blocks standing in your way, therefore having the confidence to achieve anything you put your mind to. That's what Wendy Paquette knows is possible for you. The first step is understanding why you don't believe it too, or why you do, and yet haven't created it. Put on your possibility goggles and join Wendy now, because you're at the Crossroads to Awakening.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Crossroads to Awakening show with your host, Wendy Paquette. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Now back to the program.
Well, hello and welcome back. Okay, so here it goes. The next thing we're going to do, I really hope that you looked into all the things that were working. Like, it really is that important, because if you're not acknowledging what's working, you're going to spend the rest of your days looking at things that aren't working. And let's face it, as much as you can solve the things that aren't working, you're going to source more not working. And I'm pretty sure that I can say that most people don't only want what's not working. It would be nice to experience what does work in the world, what does work in your reality more often than not, and at least have a beautiful balance of what works and what doesn't work, so that you can do what you do best, as well as pull in the beautiful creations that you have created with solving the problems all the way along. So really, if I told you that your emotional response to your reality, to situations that occur, were the keys to having more awesomeness, more money, more business, more love, relationships, just by merely knowing what that emotion represents for you, wouldn't you want to know that? So in order to know that, we get to acknowledge what is working so that we can realize that we are in creation mode. So we can recognize when we decide that we're going to manifest something in this reality, it actually happens. We can't acknowledge that or even understand it to the degree we get to if we don't see it occurring. How can we know what we want is actually happening? We wouldn't, right? So this is how we do. So the many faces of your reality are getting really truthful and really honest about what we're actually seeing, what we're actually noticing that's happening in our world, and how we can identify that. If you can't really see it with your eyes, if you're more of a experiential person, or you can allow yourself to be, it's how you're feeling, what your emotional response is to a situation. So, you can even look at things that potentially are in your regular everyday relationships. Like if you're in an argument or disagreement with your spouse, and you notice that they have a huge emotional response to the conversation that you're having, and maybe it seems like a conversation to you, but to them it's an argument, because their emotional response is higher or deeper, or I would say more in the lower frequencies or negative frequencies than yours. Your presencing what's actually going on, and it might irk you a little bit, but you're not quite as, say, angry or irritated as your spouse, you can see huge indicators on what's going on. So one is you get to notice in yourself what does actually irritate you, what is actually going on, and what you are showing yourself in that conversation. If you're irritated in any way, you get to acknowledge that and also ask, oh, what am I noticing? What am I noticing about this emotion that's showing up because of this conversation? So then this is where I would say you get to flip the mirror, right? We're going to look out just for a second, because by looking out at what we are irritated by, and say it could not be like a knockdown, drag down, blowout with your spouse. Maybe it's just a simple disagreement, but yet still a disagreement that evokes some emotion in you. What if you were able to look at the person, your spouse or whomever it is you're having a disagreement or a small argument with, and say, what are they being right now that's irritating me? What are they being that is causing this emotional response? And to me, what they're being is, it comes down to a way of being, comes down to a response. So maybe they're being self-righteous, or maybe they're being ignorant, or maybe they're being judgmental, right? You're just identifying what your experience is of who they're being in that moment in order to cause this argument to be what it is, an argument. When you've identified that way of being, you now have gifted yourself like data, knowledge, data, okay? It's merely data. It's nothing more than that. And there's a good side and a bad side to that. It is data. It is what you're experiencing. It is what you're able to identify. Here's the good part about that. So that's what you're experiencing. And you can dive right into it. And that could cause like a massive argument if it goes on for long enough. And the gift inside of that is to understand that as source, right? As we are source, that we are source, we are source energy, which is perfect in every way. We are experiencing source energy as a body. So we're an embodied source energy. Because we are embodied, we have these beautiful things called emotions, right? And oftentimes those emotions can go down a negative pathway. So in order to be able to shift that in your reality and have a different experience, you get to be able to identify what you're looking at. So now we'll kind of circle back now to what I was saying. When you identify what the other person is being or displaying to you, the way of being. So let's say it's judgmental. Let's just use that for the example. If they're being judgmental, what you're actually noticing, instead of battling them saying, you're being judgmental, how come you're being judgmental? You're so judgy. You can then, and I mean, whether you can do this in the moment or not, I guess that would be completely up to you. But if you could remove yourself from that situation to know what's actually going on there, is you're identifying an emotion, a way of being, that's triggering a negative response in you, which is the indicator, which tells you that you bought a lie. Okay, you bought a lie. The lie is that you are what you're seeing, right? Because we know in this oneness reality, everyone is the mirror. We're seeing ourselves everywhere we look. And that is true. When we see something that causes a negative reaction of someone being negative, we're also seeing ourselves, right? So that's the big dichotomy. That's where we get to remove the victim and be empowered to know that when we see something that is negative, we are also being that. Now, here's the key point to that, okay, in your reality. Here's the key point. You may see someone and you may experience someone, say, in an argument who's being judgmental, and it's bringing up an irritation in you, like a frustration or anger, because they're being judgmental. The most amazing gift is that you're looking outside of you. You're identifying the judgmental. You get to now look back at yourself and go, okay, what I did was buy a lie that I am judgmental. So I bought a lie that I am that. Now, as source energy, is it possible for you to be that? No. Source energy isn't any of those things. Source energy actually doesn't have any emotions attached to it. We, as embodied humans, experience emotions, but we don't have to always be triggered by them, right? So it's a key to experience a more multidimensional self or soul. And how that is by eliminating the areas in which we bought lies about ourselves, right? So that's where we see the faces of our reality. If we bought, and when I say bought, I liken it to shopping, right? We had some experience in our life where we were called judgmental, or we told ourselves we were being judgmental, but often it's someone else saying, "You're so judgmental," right? They're saying it to us. And in that moment, we thought, oh, we actually, like, I am being that. Or even subconsciously, if you happen to have a weak moment of letting it in, right? You decide in that moment by letting it in that you are judged. Oh my gosh, I must be judgmental. I'm judgmental. And it's in there. You don't even have to say it. It might just have been a thought, right? And subconscious grabs that thought and makes it true, right? When it makes it true, like I am judgmental, you're going to see judgmental people pop up everywhere because we are seeing a reflection of ourselves. Now, the cool part is being embodied allows us to experience emotions. And as source energy, we really don't have emotions. Like outside of this body, there are really no emotions. There might be other experiences, but we can't call them emotions because we just don't know, right? We're not outside of our body. So that we've identified this lie we bought about ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I'm really truly speaking about the soul that's like riding around in this vehicle we call a body, this skin suit, right? When we've identified a lie we bought, which is held in our cellular understanding, our cellular knowledge, because we decided it's true, we're going to see it. When we see it and can identify it, we can now change it, right? Because we're saying, oh goodness, I clearly bought a lie that I am judgmental, because that's what's showing up for me. And that the whole world is a mirror. I'm seeing it in real time. Now, it's easy for me to say, and I've been doing this for 8 years or more, nearly a decade. I still catch myself in moments where I forget that that's what I'm noticing. And I go down the rabbit hole of an argument because I've forgotten that what I'm seeing, what's coming up for me in that space is a lie I bought about myself. Now, can it be that way all the time? And I mean, are there exceptions to the rule? No, there aren't, right? Because imagine all the great things you're looking at in the world, all the beautiful, kind, generous, loving humans, the experiences you're having, those are also you. So you're not exempt from all the beautiful things, which is why we started out this episode acknowledging what is actually working. Because when we do, we create more of that, right? We buy, so for shopping, we buy more what's working because we're acknowledging it and we're making it true by the acknowledgement. When you acknowledge something that is negative, you're also making that true. And that's what this episode is all about. The faces of your reality are all so real and so true. You're living in it and you're experiencing it as an embodied soul. And, you know, let's face it, this world gets to be free from all those negative aspects we're seeing all over the place. And we also get to know that those experiences are self-created. We are seeing where we are being that, or have subconsciously chosen it, or perhaps we brought it through in our DNA, our energetic DNA, or it's in cellular memory or cellular knowledge. All of that stuff is true because we're seeing it. That's why it's true. No one's saying it's true. You're experiencing it, therefore it is. And the most beautiful thing is you can actually change that if you don't like it. right? You can amplify the things you love about your life, the things that are absolutely working. And the only way to do that is to acknowledge it. The other aspect is what's not working. You can also change that. And it's very, very simple to do so. So we're going to head into our second break. And I would love for you to keep going on what's working. This is all about what's working today, what's working in our reality. Let's acknowledge that and pool ourselves in those possibilities. Because now that we know the things that aren't working or things that are coming up negative can be shifted, let's amplify all what is working so that shifting what isn't working is easier. So let's walk into the break. You're listening to the Crossroads to Awakening show with Wendy Paquette. You will also find me on YouTube. So come and find me there and let's play in this space of possibility. So we'll go into a break right now and we'll see you in just a moment. Think about what's working.
If you could wave a magic wand and have your life be anything you wanted it to be, what would it look like? Professional dancer, CEO of a multi-million-dollar earth-conscious company, a screenwriter with top billing shows, and ultimately have the boldness to move about the world without emotional blocks standing in your way, therefore having the confidence to achieve anything you put your mind to. That's what Wendy Paquette knows is possible for you. The first step is understanding why you don't believe it too, or why you do, and yet haven't created it. Put on your possibility goggles and join Wendy now, because you're at the Crossroads to Awakening. This is the Crossroads to Awakening show with your host, Wendy Paquette. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Now back to the program.
Okay, now we're back in and you get to look at all the wonderful things. And if you did take the time to do it, that are working. Keep amplifying what's working so that more of that can show up for you, because you can aim it in whatever direction you like. You could aim what's working by acknowledging it and then looking at the next thing that you would like to have work for you, right? So imagine that you go into a meditation, you allow yourself to experience what's working, you open your heart up to possibilities, what's working, what feels good, what you want more of, because it just feels so amazing. It's working for you. Keep pooling in those possibilities, pooling in those frequencies, and amplify them on purpose by staring at them longer and acknowledging them and celebrating them, and then having your very next thought be what you would love to create. Imagine that, bringing through what's working, the energy of already success in whatever that looks like, whether it's relationships. You can be creating beautiful relationships in your work, at your work, or in your job or your career, and not yet have a romantic relationship, and pull what works for relationships from your experience in the other aspects of your life, and have the next thought be, you know what, that would be amazing to have in my romantic life. What could that look like? And lean in that direction and pull all those frequencies through. Imagine when you're pulling in and swirling in all what works, and the gratitude and acknowledgement of what's working, and creating more power and amplification in that, and then leaning it into your next thought, which could be something you would like to create. Talk about spark a possibility already baked in with what works and what's working. It's a formula for your own success. Most often, and you'll see why now, is because most of us look at what's not working and keep looking at the problem and looking at the problem and staring at the problem and amplifying the problem and making the problem have more power, right? And when the problem has more power and you think in the next thought about what you really want, what frequencies do you believe you're pulling through into and embedding into what you really want from a space of something that's not working, right? That doesn't have all its loose ends tied up. Obviously, you're going to create a space of not working in the thing that you really want. And then you're going to be frustrated that it doesn't work, and you're going to pull in that space. You're going to amplify that in the world. So if that's not what you want, then practicing a daily acknowledgement for yourself and what you do want gets to be on your docket, on your diary, on your scheduler, in your books, so that you can bring forward what you want with ease. You can create from a space of ease, and you're laying the groundwork, and you're feeding what you really want with all the acknowledgement and success of what's already occurred, that's already working. Imagine that, right? So if we took what's happening in our current reality, we took what's happening in the world, and we're like, okay, so we're all through all these, COVID times, all this pandemic, we're in it still, but we're creating work. You could feel that we're coming out the other side of something. You can either stare at all the things that aren't working, all the things that you hate, all the things that you don't want to happen in the world, all the things that you're frustrated by, you're angry with, and keep thinking about them. And then in the same token, try to look at what you really want to happen. Do you think that your level of belief that it's possible would be higher or lower? Right? Because you're already swimming in the space of frustration and anger and irritation because what's already happening isn't working. And then when you shift over to look at what is what you want, you're looking at it from the eyeballs, the space of frequency of what's not working already, what you can't stand, and you're baking that into the thought, right? It's like, so let me see, the picture that came to my mind just now is really funny. It was like being in the kitchen and you're cooking some, dog food. And you're, obviously it's different things in dog food than human food. Well, it's cleaner things in dog food when you're going to make it yourself. But nonetheless, it's dog food. And you go, you know what, I'm going to make this magnificent creme brulee, right? And you don't wash the pot that you just made the dog food in. And you throw all of your beautiful egg curd mixture into the same pot as the dog food. Now, I'm not saying the dog food's horrible, because if you're making it, it's clearly got love in it and you're making it for your dog. But it doesn't have any of the beautiful ingredients that creme brulee would have in it. Therefore, would taint and this taste, this color, this flavor, the creme brulee. I know that's a really weird example. It's the example that popped in my head, so I figured I'd just say it out loud. But it's true. Your creme brulee would then taste like dog food. Something is off with that. So that's what happens when you're sitting in the space of thought and you're cooling in the space of thought of what's not working, what you don't like, what what doesn't seem to be changing, and you can't, you keep going down that rabbit hole of like awfulness. And then you lean into, even if you can lean into what you really want, you're pulling all that crap with it, all those thoughts, all those frequencies. So being present to what's working, present to what you're enjoying, what you love, what you're excited about, what you just created, all those things, that matters. It really does matter. And there are some people who do, granted, they do they celebrate and acknowledge the things that they do correct. But they do what works. They might be surprised at some things, right? They had a moment where, wow, that really worked for me. If you spent more time reveling in those possibilities, in those successes, and those, even if they're small, you can make gratitude large as life in the smallest things. Then deliberately lean into what you want, right? Because you have choice. You're a conscious being creating every second that you are thinking. And if that's the case, wouldn't you prefer to create something that you love, that you want? Wouldn't you prefer to amplify it and bake in the beautiful ingredients to the success and have it come to you quicker? Let's face it, manifestation is fast. It's hard and fast right now. We're getting into the frequencies on this planet that are high, which means that If you're only staring at the things that aren't working and you're leaning into the pandemic with an angry heart, you're creating more of that in your world. You're just going to keep seeing it. You're going to keep seeing it show up digitally. You're going to see it on the television. You're going to hear it on the radio. You're going to hear your friends talking about it. It's going to keep showing up for you. And if you're leaning into the possibilities that you have, you're leaning into the magnificent future that we get to create because we said so, it will shift the patterning that's happening in your reality and will gift you all those things because possibilities are real, right? As much as you can stare at all the things that aren't working, you can also stare at things that are. And yes, it takes work. Of course it does. Most beautiful things on the planet that we have they don't just magically show up. We've been ingrained and entrained to believe that nothing's really truly that easy. Now, I have a side note on that because I believe a lot of things are easy and they get easier, and you can have easy show up for you. And it might take a moment, right? It might take some practice in order to get there. That's absolutely possible and available to you. And speaking generally, most of the world has been conditioned based on our DNA, our genetics, and our upbringing from our parents and their parents and their parents, that things aren't always easy. And unless it's hard, it's not valuable. So allow yourself to know that those things exist, those patterns exist, those programs exist, and lean into what you want on the light side of the frequencies, on the higher side of the frequencies. How do you know? Sit and feel how you're feeling. Acknowledge your own truth. Be so honest with yourself in the moment that you're in that you have no choice but to acknowledge what you're actually feeling. And be willing to go there. Be willing to allow yourself to acknowledge, wow, my thoughts are negative. My thoughts are not good. They're on the harder, heavier side of things. I get to shift that. And it's merely acknowledging that will shift it for you. What a beautiful gift you could give yourself. Just listening to your own thoughts and going, whoa, geez, I didn't realize that's where I was always going in my head. I can just shift that right now and then find something to shift it with. I don't care what you're staring at. You could look outside and see the sun after it's been cloudy all day and go, oh, I'm so grateful the sun comes out every day. I'm so grateful that even if it rains, the sun can still come out. It still nourishes us and the earth. It still creates heat and warms us, right? Just diving into something like that and staying in there and allowing yourself to keep pulling in the gratitude and the acknowledgement of the sun, you will gift yourself an instantaneous shift, right? It doesn't have to be hard. It just gets to be, right? So now, we went through all these things, and the intention today was to lean into what's working, to be the cause of your own beautiful shifts into possibility, and to experience the many faces of your reality as a whole on a high side, on a good side, on a happy, joyful side, on a positive aspect, so that you can create from that space. You can create more of it, because when you be that, you allow others to replicate what you're doing. Lean into wow, how are you always joyful? And you can share how you are. Because when we be it, we give others permission as well. That is true, right? If you had no one around you that was allowing you or even exemplifying being positive or being successful, how could you be it too? You would be following the pathway of what everyone else is creating. It's like the fishbowl example. A fish doesn't know it's in water. It just breathes how a fish breathes and swims because that's what it knows to do. So if we don't know that's what we're creating in a reality, the only thing that would shift that is our awareness to it, right? A fish wouldn't know that it was in water until it was taken out of water. And you wouldn't know that you're swimming in negativity until you acknowledge it and ask yourself those questions like, what's really going on in my head, my heart right now?
and being 100% honest with yourself. I mean, you can call me. We'll walk right through it. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you and like, go, let's get down to it. Where is your head? If you can't see it for yourself, you get to reach out to me. I will hold you in that space. We'll have a conversation. We can identify where your thoughts go. Because you might have a thought that says, you're not going to know. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to show you. We're going to hide, right? And if you're hiding, then you're going to buy a program that you can't see it for yourself. But we can unlock that, so don't worry. So anyway, we're walking into our final break. And it's so much fun to dive into the faces of our reality from a positive aspect and know we can shift anything if that's not where you always are. So this final third break, I want you to dive deeper into what's actually working. What is working? Today, let's just look at today, right? If you haven't been able to really find something easily, just look at today. Go to when you woke up this morning and what did it look like for you up until the moment that you experienced this, and find something. I mean, look outside of you. What worked with your animals, if you have animals, or your spouse, or your kids, or your friends, or your colleagues. Find something that worked. Look outside. Nature is always working. So we'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to the Crossroads to Awakening show with Wendy Paquette. We'll see you in a moment.
If you could wave a magic wand and have your life be anything you wanted it to be, what would it look like? Professional dancer, CEO of a multi-million-dollar earth-conscious company, a screenwriter with top billing shows, and ultimately have the boldness to move about the world without emotional blocks standing in your way, therefore having the confidence to achieve anything you put your mind to. That's what Wendy Paquette knows is possible for you. The first step is understanding why you don't believe it too, or why you do, and yet haven't created it. Put on your possibility goggles and join Wendy now, because you're at the Crossroads to Awakening. This is the Crossroads to Awakening show with your host, Wendy Paquette. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Now back to the program.
Okay, welcome back. So we're in our final stretch of leaning into and creating a really high vibe experience today. And that is something that we get to create every day. That gets to be the choice. That's the, element of clothing you're going to put on. It's the way of being you're going to dress up in, right? If you're looking at it like, I'm going to put something on today, wouldn't you want to put on something positive in order to move through your day with that on? When you put your pants on, you carry your pants through your entire day. What if you put on your possibility goggles, right? What if you put on your positivity goggles, your acknowledgement goggles, and you wore them all day long until you went to bed, right? You don't even have to take them off. I mean, I would say you'd want to take your pants off if you're going to bed and put your jammies on. So maybe you would take them off just to sleep, but you could acknowledge yourself for wearing them the entire day. And what do you think that would create, right? You're going to acknowledge yourself from the moment you wake up in the morning until the second that you go to sleep. You're going to create a life worth living. And isn't that why we're all here? Isn't that what we're all after? Is creating a life worth living so that we can wake up every day inspired and enjoy. We have a skin suit for a reason. We chose to come here to live a fulfilling, curious life. We didn't come here to know everything. If we did, it'd be boring as hell. And what would we do? We would know everything. It wouldn't matter. Nothing would make sense because we knew it all. So what if you could allow yourself to acknowledge that you chose to come into a skin suit, live in a world where you had relationships that you got to foster, you got to be creative and positive and create from a space of curiosity because we don't know everything. We don't know where we're headed. We don't know what is coming next. All we do know is that we are the human existence of our soul. We are the skin suit. We are wearing the skin suit. We are embodied now in this reality. We do know that. We also know that we are our soul's extension, right? I don't know if you've ever come across someone who is channeling their soul. It's pretty much what happens most of my shows because I just
allow the energies that be to flow through me and through my face in order to speak to whomever might be listening, and live from that space. Channeling your soul is not stopping at your brain when information comes through, right? Not stopping in your brain to try to analyze it, decide whether it's right or wrong, or judge it in any form. It's allowing your soul to speak through your face. And my friends always laugh when I say that, but it's true. There's no filter when you're channeling your soul. You just say what's really truly in your heart and of highest good all the time. It might not seem it. And that's where people will stop and not allow themselves to go there, or to be so free, or to trust themselves in that space, because they're worried they might say something they'll regret. And I assure you that when you channel your soul, it comes from that pure space of love, that infinite space of love and gratitude and possibility. Your soul is full and complete and perfect in every way, and it has the highest good of everyone at heart. So because that's true, when you get to that space of channeling your soul, you cannot go wrong. You can only speak the truth of your soul and the higher knowledge and the infinite intelligence that we all have access to. So what if you could create that for yourself, right? Well, you can, is why I'm saying it, of course. And so there's always an opportunity to connect with me. There's always an opportunity to step into your greatness from a different space and allow yourself to be the magnificent soul you came here to be and experience. So find me. Go to wendypaquette.com. Send me a message, or there might be something there you can jump into. Modern day time travel. I believe it's moderndaytimetravel.com will be where you can jump into some of the programs, whether you're just giving yourself permission to see what meditation is, or all the way through up to learning how to channel your soul, actually being given the blueprint, go from 3D to 5D, 3D being laws of duality and all those things, to channeling your soul every single day and enjoying every second of it, because you're at the helm, you're at the driver's seat, right? So reach out and find me and let's play, because there's so much more to this world than you might think in this moment, or you might want to think and haven't seen, right? So let's access some of that for yourself so you can have it as well. So as we're coming to a close, it has been so much fun leaning into the many faces of your reality. What are you pretending not to know about what's truly possible for you? Ask yourself that question, and we'll go from there. Come find me on YouTube, on Instagram, Wendy Bruner Paquette, or at the Crossroads to Awakening show, and reach out to me, direct message me, connect with me in some way so that you can connect with you. Because this world gets to have you in your most beautiful, powerful self, your most beautiful, powerful energy. If you're creating a business, wouldn't it be magical to be so aligned and channel your soul in every minute? Imagine the content and the copy that would come through your face when you were in alignment and allowed your soul to channel through you. It is possible. It happens regularly. And I've supported other humans to do it over and over and over. So we only have a minute left of the show. I'd like to express my extreme, infinite gratitude for each and every one of you for listening to these episodes. And if you're a new listener, thank you so very much for being a part of my life, part of my energy, and being the recipient to all things possible. That is what my intention is as an embodied human, channeling my soul in many, many ways. I look forward to sharing that possibility with you and allowing you to see your true self for who you truly be and change the world we live in because you said so. Change your experience, which will change others' experience. It's the most beautiful mirror we'd ever want to look into. And it starts with the many faces of your reality. So ensure to look and see what's working for you, right? Live in the space of gratitude. And let's talk about meditation next time, because there are many ways. I've just discovered so many ways to meditate. You're probably meditating and didn't even realize it. So I'm sending you all kinds of love. I look forward to seeing you next week, or hearing you or speaking to you next week on the Crossroads to Awakening show. You're listening to me, Wendy Paquette. I'm sending you all kinds of love and great big tight Sending them out to
Thank you for choosing to listen to the Crossroads to Awakening radio show. Wendy Paquette will return next Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Mountain, and 11 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We look forward to you joining us again. Until then, enjoy your journey, and we'll meet you at the crossroads.